just like to start as well by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land that we're gathered on here and paying my respects to their elders, past, present and future. My talk's sort of changing tack a bit. We're a community movement, local food movement, and where we've sort of established to try and support local growers. So our sort of philosophy that underlies what we do is to build community through collaborative and regenerative food growing. So just a bit of an overview on the movement. I'm sort of going to take you along the journey that we've had over the past couple of years. So nearly 2 years ago now we started having gatherings and conversations quite informally to try and get a sense of what the community wanted in terms of a local food economy. And they come under the umbrella of the Sunraysia Local Food Future, which is really just a movement, it's not any kind of organisation. So Slow Food is involved in that. Sunraysia Produce is a locally owned fruit vegetable retail store, the only one we have in Mildura. People with expertise in growing and training qualifications in growing food, people who offer logistical and practical support in growing food, and organic growers as well. Hopefully most people know where Mildura is. It's right near the junction of the Murray-Darling rivers, about 4 hours from here. So we're a food bowl. We grow 98% of Australia's dried fruit, about 3/4 of Australia's table grapes and about 1/4 of Australia's citrus, as well as a lot of other fruit, vegetables and nuts. Despite this, it's actually really, really hard to get local food. It's completely crazy. So started having these conversations. We put a couple of surveys out to try and see whether the local community actually wanted access to more local food, and overwhelmingly they do. We have 12 supermarkets in Sunraysia, 3 of them are locally owned, and we have 1 fruit vegetable retail shop. Population is about 60,000 in the region. So we decided to start a trial, which we called Out of the Box, which is a weekly local produce box scheme, and we limited it to 30 participants because we were a bunch of volunteers and we just wanted to see if we could do it and if there was a demand. We filled the 30 spots 24 hours after we put out a post on Facebook that said, does anyone want to subscribe? And we ran it for 3 months. So it was great. We set up a Facebook group for the 30 subscribers to interact on the page, and people were posting recipes and photos of their kids eating food, and it was fantastic. There were a couple of challenges, but probably the biggest one was getting a consistent supply of produce. We were focused on produce that was grown without chemicals. So again, even though we're a food bowl, it was really hard to get enough produce for 30 boxes a week. And the reason for that is that most of our growers that grow without chemicals already have markets. So we have a number of larger, sort of medium-scale, organic and biodynamic certified growers. They already have markets. All their food goes on the back of trucks off to Melbourne or Sydney, and you can't buy it locally. So, and we do have some small-scale growers, but they tend to use conventional methods, and so we were working with them, and this is where Peter played a big role. But we actually were starting to put a call out for does anyone want to grow food at a small scale, and we'll provide you with a local market. So after the trial, we took a bit of a breather, and then we managed to get some support through the federal government's Farming Together program, which probably some of you know about. It's trying to support collaborative farming. And that's helped us to restart. So we're now in week 9. We were aiming to have 100 subscribers a week. We've been sitting around 70 subscribers, which we got in that first week. We've got the same challenges with consistency of supply. We launched at a really dumb time. when the winter crops had kind of almost finished and some crops hadn't started. So, but we're working very closely with our local fruit and veg retailers, so we're able to source produce through them to kind of bulk out the boxes if we don't have enough ourselves. This is our infographic that we put together to describe what we do. So we have these three outcomes that we'd like to achieve. One is to support small-scale local growers, so we guarantee a 50% return to our growers. When we start making a profit, those profits will go back into community food growing projects, and our focus is on working with growers to grow without the use of chemicals and using regenerative techniques. And again, Peter's our growing mentor, so he's on our books to work with growers to help them grow in those ways. We've had a local graphic designer do this for us for free, so he's made up these beautiful sort of logos that go on our boxes. The other thing, and Sam talked a lot about this, social media, it's pretty much our only way we communicate and get our stuff out there. Each week we do a profile of one of our subscribers. We've got one of our teams, an amazing marketing guru, so she goes down every week when people come and pick up their boxes, grabs the lucky person and gets them to come out the front, takes a photo of them and gets a quote from them, and that goes on her Facebook page, and people love it. This is just another post that Rach put up recently, so she's been taking photos each week. This is our large box, so 6 weeks of a large box, and you can see there's 71 people liked or loved it, and got shared 13 times, and there's always a bit of commentary on the photos. So I'll move on now. We've got another focus which is around supporting the rejuvenation of some of the empty land in our district. This photo I took earlier this year. It's quite a common sight as you drive around. About 25% of the land in the irrigation district is no longer productive, and it once was. So this was an old grape block. You can see the vines kind of heaped up in the background there. So we have, Mildura is quite a low socioeconomic area, and in Victoria it ranks quite low down on a lot of outcomes around social wellbeing, health and so on. And some of it is connected to this, that there used to be a lot of small-scale family farms. 20 years ago, most of them were 10-acre blocks. They were productive. Most of them probably were turned over to either grapes or citrus when there was a rise in that market, and then when that market collapsed, this is what happened. It was also the millennium drought, so the price of water went through the roof, and the only people that could keep paying for the water were larger corporations, so a lot of the small-scale farmers now have unutilised land. So our idea when we started getting together and having these conversations, there was a really strong drive, particularly from younger local people, was we'll find some vacant land that people want to see food grown on. We'll find some people who want to grow food, bring them together and transform our local food system. A couple of months after we sort of started having these conversations, we were invited to a workshop that was being run by some researchers from the universities of Wollongong and Melbourne, and they were looking at new migrants in our region with farming backgrounds and how those backgrounds translated in our context. It's called Diverse People, Diverse Crops. So as we were sort of sitting there listening to their stories, and the main outcome of their research was that these farmers couldn't access land. So they weren't actually growing food except for maybe in their backyards. So we had meanwhile been offered access to all this vacant land in the conversations that we've been having. So we kind of put our hands up and well, we might be able to help, and that's where it all started. So just to go back to our network that was building, it started growing, so we're now connected to these researchers. They were working particularly closely with the community from Burundi in East Africa, who were predominantly farmers and had a really, really strong desire to grow food, but weren't able to access land. We've got a local ethnic communities council, so we are a resettlement zone, so we've got 62 different cultures in Mildura. So yeah, more connections. So again, our local fruit and veg retailer, they happen to have 1 acre of land next to their shed where they sell fruit and veg, and they were the first ones who went, well, we can grow food there. So that's how it all started. It was an experiment on 1 acre. No one knew what they were doing. No one had ever done it before. We didn't know any other models that existed. But the Burundian community were like, yes, you know, have we got that land yet? Have we got that land yet? And we're like, oh. So we sort of, you know, threw together a memorandum of understanding, and we had a bit of support from other, there's a group in Melbourne called 3,000 Acres who do a similar thing around community gardens, so kind of getting the support from wherever we could. And in April this year, the Landline came out and filmed and made an episode, so I'll play that to you now. It runs for about 6.5 minutes. Hopefully the sound.
Mildura is almost 12,000 kilometres from war-torn Burundi, but it's here that a small group of refugees are working on a community garden. They farm on donated land using equipment and water that's been given to them by the local community and by the group Sunraysia Local Food Future. Growing food is helping these people feel at home in Australia.
We have many people who have a farming background. First of all, it gives us a sense of belonging. It gives us a sense of we are producing something, you know, and also we are sharing our knowledge. It does play a very big role in our life, yes.
A joint University of Wollongong and University of Melbourne research project has been analysing this community garden. It's found it is benefiting people whose lives have been affected by war and who've struggled to build new lives in Australia.
Migrants and refugees are more than just migrants and refugees. They're people with skills to offer Australia. A lot of the refugees that have come here from the Burundian community were initially settled in more urban parts of Australia. They've come here because they'd like to grow food and they'd like to access land. Unfortunately, once they've gotten here, they've realised land is quite expensive and it's quite difficult to access farmland. They're finding it difficult to find employment in Mildura and in Australia more general because of their English language skills and because they don't have the correct certificates for the jobs that are available. And so they ended up sitting idly in their homes.
We used to grow our crops our own because that is the work we were using to do in our country. It helps us and it helps our members of our community because it brings us a good thing to meet each other and to exercise. It is somewhere we can meet and we can do something different.
The Burundian group wanted to grow this crop organically, which brought worm fertiliser manufacturer Australian Vermiculture on board. Owner Del Price says she's got a lot out of being involved in the crop.
It's been great to not only be able to support the project through the worm castings, but it's been really rewarding to understand some methods beyond what growers are using locally, to see traditional methods in place and the importance that's placed on growing healthy crops through a healthy soil, and know that that produce has grown locally and it's going to be available here for locals to enjoy, makes it really rewarding to be part of.
Sometimes it's the simple things that make all the difference, like again having access to the food they know from home.
Our research has shown with this particular garden that growing culturally important crops for people from different ethnic backgrounds can help facilitate a sense of belonging in Australia. It can help improve their well-being and it can create a positive outlook for migrant and refugee communities. So our research showed that we've got these people living in this community willing to be here, seeking out parts of rural Australia with a lot of food growing skills, but unable to find land to farm on. So we got to that point with our research and decided to give that feedback to the local community to see if anybody had a plot of land available that could be used. There's so much chance for two-way learning, and just providing one piece of land can bring all that out.
While Sunraysia is a horticulture hub, its semi-arid climate wasn't really suitable for a thirsty maize crop, and it had to be adapted to local conditions. Third-generation wheat farmer Dean Lampert has been keen to help, donating local knowledge, time and machinery, and in exchange he's gotten to know new members of the community.
I see the future of projects like this one being a trial plot. It's gone really well, and hopefully it can just get bigger and more nationalities of people can do it as well. We've just got so much dead land here in Mildura that needs things like this happening to it. Every year there's more migrants coming from different places and different conflict regions around the world, and that's just bringing so much awesome food and new ideas with them. To involve myself with these people in this community, it's just been a plus at every turn.
Well, I'm really excited to see what's going to be happening here in the future. Since we've started this, other ethnically diverse communities living in the region have approached Sunraysia Local Food Future and ourselves with a strong desire to grow their food. So I think there's a real chance here for us to grow different types of crops in Australia. That cultural desire to grow food that they remember from home is so important, and it motivates them to work hard and to grow, and I think Australia will benefit. We'll have more crops grown here that are of different varieties. So I'd like to see other communities get involved and have the chance to access some land and show us what they can do. I think this is really important for Australia. I think we need to keep remembering that we need to grow our own food. There's so much chance for two-way learning, and just providing one piece of land can bring all that out.
The people behind the Mildura Community Garden say it's proof of what can be achieved when the agricultural knowledge of migrants and refugees is shared not only with local farmers, but with those new to food production as well. Researchers and former refugees say this could be a way of making the resettlement process smoother right around the country, particularly for people who have been displaced.
I've been here for more than 80 years, but I still have that sense of emptiness, that sense of loneliness, and that sense of not feeling like I'm at home yet, you know. And to have something like this, it's huge, yes. We are even dreaming of having a bigger land where we can have different communities getting together, working together, not just our community, you know. It would be perfect if we can reach that dream.
Talk a bit more about what's happened since then. In a minute, just going back to our network. What we decided about a year ago was we needed to have some sort of legal entity if we wanted to keep doing this stuff. So we've set up an NGO called Food Next Door, and we're in the process of becoming a co-op so that we can keep doing this work outside of Victoria as well. So we've had interest in South Wales in this model. And just again, that through just that 1 acre, and it's only been 18 months or so, there's lots and lots of networks and connections that have happened in our community. Like Olivia mentioned in the video, we've had other groups of new migrants with farming backgrounds who want to do the same thing. They've been watching what's been happening, and so they've made connections and so on. I'll just tell you a bit about our team, because this is absolutely a team effort, and it's required, I guess, a really diverse range of people. So Reese is a third generation beekeeper. He's born and bred in the region. Sevilla is from central Victoria. She's been in Mildura for about 3 years. She's got a lot of expertise in risk management, which we like. Dean, who you saw in the video, he's our president. He's actually 6th generation wheat farmer in the region. Rach is our marketing guru, I mentioned before, so she does a lot of the work around out of the box. Ben is from Broken Hill, he's been in Mildura a couple of years. He's working as a beekeeper as well. He has a background in permaculture, and he's also now a grower for Out of the Box. So he started growing just this year because he's had somewhere to supply produce to. Tess is from the Wollongong regions. She actually came over to do her honours project looking at the Italian community's influence on food culture in Mildura, and loved it so much that she's moved there, and she's now running Out of the Box. She's our operations manager there. Peter is in the room, who you heard a bit about before, with decades of experience in biodynamic farming. I'm originally from Sydney. I've been in Mildura about 10 years, and my background's in ecology. And last but not least, Tony is also a local. He grew up on a block, and that block was sold, and so he's got a really strong passion to see some of that empty land return to production. So our model brings together newly arrived migrants with local foodscapes, which are the food that's been produced in a region, and the cultural associations with that food, and has positive ecological, social and environmental and economic outcomes. You heard a bit about the research. The researchers we've been working with are amazing. They keep coming back. Olivia's been to Mildura 17 times, I think, over the past couple of years. They've just had a paper published in an international journal which puts forth this thing about migrant farmers in Australia being absolutely important for the future of food production, but also completely undervalued at the moment. So we've put that research in there because we believe it's been really essential to the success that we've seen so far. I put community support under there because it's kind of like the soil. So to be able to produce healthy food, you need a healthy soil. The reason that we've had success is because we've had this really strong, healthy community, which we've had to build. It wasn't necessarily already there, but the intent, I guess, was already there. So we've just been able to tap into that, and through all the connecting, activate it. So the really obvious thing that we've needed is access to land and water. The Burundian community now have access to another 4 acres, so 5 acres in total. So that's with 2 landholders, and we have memorandums of understanding with both of those. So we couldn't do it without them. They've gifted that access. They don't want any money for it. Obvious things like donations or loans of materials and machinery, the compost that you saw has been really important. The work, building relationships and doing the connections much less tangible and harder to put a value on, and certainly harder to get any funding for, but that's been really vital to the success of this. A lot of the new migrants, particularly the farmers who tend to be the sort of older cohort, don't have very high levels of English. So things that might seem really simple for us to, when you get a couple of quotes for something, it's actually really difficult. And that's taken a lot of work to facilitate and support that, and also help the broader community who might not have worked with other cultures before to understand that process as well. The things that are missing and the challenges in all of this, and the major one's policy. So at the moment, there's no government policy that supports any of these processes. The conversation is happening and it's starting, but at the moment there's nothing there. And funding, which we're currently unfunded. We got some funding for Out of the Box, which has helped sort of support some of this, but that's going to be the biggest challenge at the moment. We are looking at, we've got some in-kind support to help develop a business plan where we'll be looking at some sort of sustainable model for this. The vision, which was alluded to before, was that other groups will also have the opportunity to farm. I had a really brief chat with Sam right at the beginning of today about potentially looking at other ways of facilitating this, you know, with Cultivate or Ori Co-op, who have been sort of supporting us as well. So we kind of have this vision of a demonstration farm where people have their own plots. They might want to farm as individuals or as families or as community groups. They might want to sell the produce. If they do, we've got out of the box ready for them to sell straight into. But we really want to develop it into a fully fledged food hub with a, you know, a community kind of hub and a community kitchen. That's the big vision. And that's it for me.